Imagine co-authoring a book that has a profound effect on folks around the world, shifting their perception in such a fundamental way that folks who read the story and read the book have more fulfillment and success in their lives. Well, remember, it's all about the possibilities, right, entrepreneurs? Today's guest has helped people around the world with his story, and he's bringing us the 5 core principles from his international best-selling book, The Go-Giver. I am a huge fan of our guest, but more importantly, I'm a huge fan of who he is and how he is in the world. What a role model, showing folks everywhere how to live a life filled with joy, love, laughter, and possibilities. Hey everyone, welcome to the Possibility Partner Show. I'm your host, Ande Lyons, your Chief Possibility Officer, and I love bringing you Andelicious advice for entrepreneurial adventurers right here in Google Plus Hangouts on Air. These are conversations with entrepreneurial adventurers who are seasoned and have amazing experience, and they bring their best tips, tools, and resources to help you and your business keep growing and thriving. Wow, I am so thrilled and I'm so honored you tuned in today. I've got a big woohoo, yoo-hoo to the live viewers. What a turnout today. What a crowd. I can feel your delicious energy here in the room. So thrilled you're here. And to my replay viewers, I am blowing you kisses from Boston. Mwah, 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 mwah. I'm so grateful you're catching the show. At a later time, perhaps you're working out or you're in the car driving, whatever you're doing, I'm so thrilled you're here. And to the new viewers and subscribers, wow, thank you for swinging by and bringing your delicious energy too. Let's stay connected. Now, you know, I'm on all the social media platforms, but the place you'll find me hanging the most is at the bar. Yep, that's what I call Twitter. I'm at Ande Lyons. Follow, engage. We can say a lot in 140 characters, I promise. It's meaningful engagement there. If you need more tips, tools, and resources to enhance your entrepreneurial adventure, please visit my website, andelyons.com. I've got all sorts of goodies there for you. And to keep tuning in to the Possibility Partner Show, I would be so honored if you subscribed to my YouTube channel, Andelicious Advice. So, are you as excited as I am today to get started? Because I am like, ah! I love our guest. You all know him because of his wonderful way and generosity in the world. But today, it's one-on-one, face-to-face with our guest, who is a person of influence, international best-selling author, and an amazing speaker if you get to hear him live in person. But this is kind of like in person, right? Please join me in welcoming the oh so divinely delicious and delightful Bob Burg. Hi, Bob.
Wow. Hello, Ande. It's great to be with you.
I am so thrilled you're here today. You know, I met you on Twitter, and it was before I had even read The Go-Giver, and you were just engaging away in such a meaningful way. I said, who is this man? I love him. And your energy comes through, Bob, in the 140 characters. I don't know how you do it. But before we get started on the 5 laws of stratospheric success, let's talk a little bit about you. You know, a lot of entrepreneurs are watching this show. We all have ways that we were called or drawn to be entrepreneurs. And I love asking our guests at the beginning of the show, what compelled you to go down the not so well-worn path of the entrepreneurial adventure?
Well, you know, I grew up in an entrepreneurial household. My parents were entrepreneurs, so I saw that as a natural way of living life. Did entrepreneurial things growing up, but then I went to work for a company when I got out of college. I was a broadcaster, actually, and was with a station in the Midwest. I was actually the late night news guy for a very small ABC affiliate. And I had to be about the worst news guy you've ever seen. I could read the news, but I knew nothing about the news. I was 24 years old, had no, it would be different now. I mean, I'm pretty well informed at this point, but back then I really wasn't and didn't really care. So, and I think I was probably too positive for the medium anyway. My idea of a good newscast opening would have been to say something like, "Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Burg, and the news tonight, everything's great. Go to bed. We'll let you know if something comes up."
I love that.
And I was pretty much not in news for too long, and got into sales. And sales is really entrepreneurial anyway. Even if you're working for another company, you're still you eat when you produce. So it's fairly entrepreneurial anyway. And eventually, I started my own business speaking several years later, and I've been doing that, and I've enjoyed it. But I like working. When you're working for yourself, as you're really working for everyone else. At the same time, it's still up to you to do what you need to do. And there's a feeling about that I think entrepreneurs like, whereas other people just might not like. And entrepreneurship isn't for everyone, nor should it be. But it certainly is for me. I wouldn't make a very good long-term employee, I don't think.
Exactly. Don't I know? You genuinely love helping people feel great about themselves. I mean, your appreciation factor of all that people are doing, it's amazing. What got you going down that road to really share that with other folks?
Well, I think that's really something I picked up from my folks as well. My dad was sort of more in the public eye, as I tend to be, and he's just a person who naturally had great people skills. With me, it wasn't so much natural. I had to learn it. And it went against some of my nature a little bit in certain ways. But with my dad, it's something he always had. And I always said that my dad's greatest people skill was a genuine interest in others. And he always made people feel genuinely good about themselves. Meanwhile, my dad accomplished a lot when it came to dealing with others. And it was really always because he had that genuine way of making people feel good about the situation. So that was something that I could emulate. And although I've read, so many of the great books, the classics like How to Win Friends and Influence People, and I love that book, and so many of the great books about people skills and about influence and about persuasion and all those things, and learned from every single one of those books. There's no one I've learned more about this from than my dad.
I love that. And you use the word genuine a lot. How would you define genuine?
Well, I think genuine and authentic can be used interchangeably, and I think it's in a sense it's coming from a sense of one's it's a congruency with oneself. Gandhi was always credited with, and I assume he is the person who said that integrity is when everything you think and everything you feel and everything you say and everything you do are in alignment. And I think that's the key. It's that alignment. It's that congruency. And I think when you have that, then you're genuine, then you're authentic. And I don't know if I have that 100%. It's something that I certainly work toward. And I think there's a continuum, I think, with most people. And we're always trying to improve in that area.
Absolutely. I think it's a practice. It's a daily practice to stay tuned in. It's doing the inner work so that you can have the outer world be in alignment with who you are and how you want to be in the world.
Sure.
Now, one of the stories about you I find so fascinating is that you had the idea for the Go-Giver, but you really are not that fond of writing. So what a gift that you met John Mann and were able to collaborate. Share with folks about that, because sometimes I think that many entrepreneurs stumble over the fact that, I can't do that. Well, sometimes you don't have to. You can collaborate with someone who's very talented at something and leverage their experience and still get an important message out. So share, Bob.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great point you bring up. I had a book out. My first book was called Endless Referrals, and that was a how-to book. And it was really on how to help people who loved what they did. They enjoyed their work. They loved the value they could provide to others, but they weren't very comfortable with the selling process or even with meeting people and developing that network of people who they could do business with, who would refer them to others and so forth. And so that book was written. It was a how-to book, though. It was a very standard type of how-to book. But throughout the years, I'd always enjoyed reading parables. I think the first one I read was probably Ogmandino's Greatest Salesman in the World. And then you got that one.
I got that one on the shelf here.
And James Classen's Richest Man in Babylon. And then in the late 70s, early 80s, there was Doctors Blanchard and Johnson with the 1 Minute series, 1 Minute Manager, 1 Minute Salesperson, 1 Minute Apology, 1 Minute, right? And through the years, I'd read parables and thought, wow, these are great. You can learn from them. They have a wonderful story and they don't take long. And so I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could take Endless Referrals, the major premise in Endless Referrals, which is all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust, and turn that into a parable. So I came up with the title, The Go-Giver, the premise being that shifting your focus from getting to giving, in this case, giving meaning constantly and consistently providing value to others, is not only a nice way to live life, but a very financially profitable way of doing business. And I began to write it, and Andy, it took me about 2 minutes to realize there's a big difference between writing a how-to book, which anyone can write if they stick with it, you put down what you know, and writing an actual work of fiction, which is what The Go-Giver would be. So I indirectly knew a guy named John David Mann. He was the editor-in-chief of a magazine that I was a guest columnist for. And every month I'd submit the articles, and John, who's a brilliant writer, and people who are in the know, nowadays everybody knows who John is. He's very sought out as a co-author and as a ghostwriter. I mean, this guy's busier than can be. But back then, only a certain niche market knew how brilliant this guy was, and I was one of them who knew. But he used to send back the articles, everyone, to with the edits. And he's so brilliant, but he's so humble. He would send back a note that said, I did this, I fixed this, I added this, is this okay? Which he doesn't have to do as the editor, but he always did. And the running joke became that I'd send back an email to him and say, not only is it okay, you write my stuff better than I write my stuff. And, so we had a good rapport and we were good friends, but we'd still never met. But then when I had the idea for The Go-Giver, and I sketched out a very rough sketch of it. I mean, nothing, so John was the only guy that came to mind that I wanted to be the lead writer for this, because I knew he could take this and really turn it into something that I really couldn't. And when I say I couldn't, it's not false modesty or anything. It's as John Maxwell has said, it was outside my strength zone.
Absolutely.
Not outside my comfort zone, outside my strength zone. And so, sometimes I asked John if he would do this. He was even at that time very busy, but he and his fiance at that time, Anna, now his wife, were visiting Tampa, Florida, visiting her mom. And I live in Jupiter, which is across the state. And so they came over from Tampa one night. We had dinner. I showed them the basic draft of what I had. We talked for hours about it. And then a couple of weeks later, he called me from his house and said, Bob, I think we've got something here. So, I was very cool about it and said, okay, well, great, John, we'll look at, what we can, blah, 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 blah. And, I hung up the phone. It's like, yes, John David Mann's going to, And so it worked out real well.
Oh, major happy dance at that moment. And I have to tell you, this is a very key learning opportunity for all of us, because we have so much that we need to give and get out to the world. And it's our own limitations that prevent us from doing it, and our need to, I guess, be the author versus a co-author of whatever it is we're trying to get out. So folks, be sure to leverage, find folks around you who can help take your message out there. I love that. Now, folks who have communicated with you online, I know they're blown away about your ability to respond on social media. This is not an age factor. Lots of baby boomers are really doing amazing things online today. It is just how quickly you respond. I mean, where do you get the time? Because I know you tweet like crazy, you respond and thank everybody, Facebook. How do you do it to stay so engaged and connected?
Well, first of all, it's much easier for me when I'm in town than when I'm on the road, because when I'm in town, I'm pretty much near the computer anyway, because I'm working. So what I do is I might be away for an hour, but then every hour or so, I'm going to check back and see if there's anyone I need to respond to. So it's easier that way. When I'm on the road, I'm not very good with the little, iPhone because my fingers are too big or I'm too old or something about it, but I'm just not good at responding. So I have to wait till I'm back in the hotel room where I can then get back with people. But when I'm on the road, when I'm at home, it's pretty easy for me. Now, it does take up a lot of time. And people say, well, how can you take up that kind of time? And what it comes down to, Andy, is I hold it as a high value to respond to others. Okay. So it means that you do things sometimes that are a little bit less convenient than they might be, but it's because it's congruent with your value system. And so to me, I just find it's important to respond to people when they do something, when they retweet, when they ask a question, if they, or post something. I just feel I should get back with them. And, so that's what I do.
I love that. And that's part of your being in alignment with your integrity and all that you bring to the world. Is there a daily practice that you have that you could recommend to our viewers that helps you stay focused and on purpose and in alignment?
I wish I could say there was, some special thing or meditation or no, not really. When I get up every morning, I say a prayer of gratitude to God, and I try to keep in mind and remember throughout the day that God is watching over me and everything I'm doing is to make a difference and so forth and so on. But I can't say. I know it's not politically correct, but I can't really say there's one practice or one thing that I do.
I think getting up and saying thank you is really enough for most people. Really, it's just thank you. That's plenty, and I think it's so important when we're all out, especially the entrepreneurial adventurers who are using so much courage to do what they're doing out there. It is great to say thank you for this opportunity, even when you're feeling like a failure or a flop or the old why bother syndrome. I'm going to bring up a few comments from our wild and wonderful viewers today that are live, Bob. We have Deborah Oakland right here. Providing value to others is key to prosperity. Bob Burg, you are a living example of this principle. The Go-Giver is one of the first success books I read and love to this day. Deborah, thank you for that.
Very kind. I know Deborah, and she is absolutely awesome. She's fantastic.
And then a huge fan of yours, Shannon. Bob does a great job of getting back to people on Twitter. Even when we've had our exchanges and included Bob, he gets back right away. It's so cool to see.
Thank you, Shannon. I appreciate that. Shannon's a great guy.
That's evidence, folks, of someone who really wants to be engaged. And you can learn so much about all the things going on in Bob's life at his very simple website URL. Are you ready for this? It's burg.com, BURG.com. Was the internet even around? How did you grab that URL so quickly, Bob?
It happened that somebody who was a fan of the Endless Referrals book, this is back in the 90s, was very techie, very, very knowledgeable about technology. And he called me, he had a couple questions just regarding the book itself, and we spoke on the phone, and he said, by the way, have you gotten your domain, burg.com yet? And I said, my what and who and what have you? And he said, you really need to get this. There's this thing coming along that I said, yeah, I don't think that's something I'm ever going to be interested in. He said, well, I'll tell you what. He said, just take my word for it. Get burg.com right now and just, forget about it. And I did. So I was very lucky. I took that advice.
I love that. And, folks, if you haven't read The Go-Giver, you can download the first chapter for free right there on the website. So I encourage you to do that. And those who are used to my hangouts here, the Possibility Partners Show, that after every show, I have an opportunity for you to engage with my guest and myself. And I call it the Afterglow Chat. And as soon as I hit end broadcast in the room here, I grab the URL from this room and I put it right into the comment thread. And all you have to do is click on that link and you pop right into the room, and nothing's being recorded. You can leave video off if you want, but I highly recommend this opportunity to increase awareness of who you are and share your deliciousness with other entrepreneurs who really, truly care deeply about you and your success. So I hope we get to see you after the show. Right, Bob?
Absolutely.
Yay! So let's chat about the Go-Giver and more importantly, the 5 laws of stratospheric success, because these are such wonderful principles that we can all apply in our lives. And let's begin with number 1, the law of value. And basically, in a nutshell, it's everyone loves to be appreciated. Start with that law.
Well, the law of value says that your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. When you first hear that, it's a little counterintuitive because the question, the very logical question is, well, that sounds all nicey nice and everything, but how do you give more in value than you take in payment and survive in your business, never mind thrive in your business? It sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy. Give more in value than you take in payment. So to understand this, we simply have to understand the difference between price and value. And the difference is significant. Price is a dollar amount. It's a dollar figure. It's finite. It is what it is. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, opportunity, idea, what have you, that brings with it so much worth or value that someone will willingly exchange their money or time or what have you for it and feel great about it while you make a very healthy profit. Can I give you an example?
I'd love that. Thank you.
In the Go-Giver, in the story, we cited Iafrate's Italian Cafe, run by Ernesto Iafrate. And this was a high-end restaurant in a very swanky part of town. And when you ate there, you paid a lot of money for it. And that's fine, but what value did you receive in exchange that made it worthwhile? Well, first, the food was just fantastic. It was terrific, okay? But there was more to it than that. The entire experience was wonderful. From the moment you were greeted by Sal, the maitre d', and you were made to feel like $1,000,000, and when you were seated and greeted by the wait person, and Ernesto would come over, and the whole atmosphere and the ambiance. And so you might have spent $150, $200 or what have you, but you came out of it feeling like $1,000,000. Certainly you received thousands of dollars worth of value or use value. So you receive more in value than what you paid. Meanwhile, with Ernesto, the cost of his food, the cost of goods sold, his other expenses such as staff, other overhead, was obviously far less than what he charged for the meal. So he also made a very healthy financial profit. So both of you, and this is the key aspect of a free market-based exchange, where basically no one's forced to do business with each other. They do so because they both choose to. And in a free market exchange, there are 2 profits: the customer profits and the seller profits. And so that's what happened. But it all comes back to focus and the general culture of Ernesto's restaurant and his focus, which is not on making money. The focus is on providing exceptional value to the other person. But when you do that, the money flows, the money follows. This is why we say that money is an echo of value. It's the thunder, if you will, to value's lightning, which simply means that the value must come first. That's where the focus is. The value must come first. The money you receive is simply a very natural and direct result of the value you provide. So I don't want anybody to think, oh, the law of value says you don't care about making a profit. No, you make a great profit. But the profit is because you don't focus on the profit. You focus on the service you're providing. You understand that when you do that, for very logical reasons, the profit follows.
I love that word, seller profit. I've never thought about that, but it's really part of the equation, right, Bob?
Both parties profit, absolutely, because both are exchanging something they wanted less for something they wanted more.
Right. I love that. So let's move on to law number 2, law of compensation. Everybody remembers Nicole's story, right? But it's your income is determined by how many people you serve.
That's
Chat about that.
Yeah, and where law number one says to give more in value than you take in payment, law number two tells us that the more people whose lives you impact or lives you touch with that exceptional value, the more money with which you'll be rewarded. Ernesto provided great value to his customers, but it wasn't just one customer. It had to be a whole bunch. And if you recall, his restaurant was filled night after night after night. People came, they came back, they referred to others. So as Nicole Martin, the CEO in the story, told Joe, the protege, law number one, the law of value, as important as it is, and it's very important, that represents only your potential income. Law number two, it's not enough to serve one person. Law number two represents your actual income because it reflects the number of lives you impact. So we could almost combine those first two laws and say exceptional value plus exceptional reach equals very high compensation.
Well, and I think we need to clarify that here because many of us are on social media and we see folks with thousands and thousands of fans, followers, likes, whatever. I don't know. Does it matter the quantity or is it the quality that you're serving?
Well, if you could have 1 million followers, but if no one's doing business with you, it's not really, it's not going to impact your bottom line. I mean, but when people say, well, is what's more important, quality or quantity? Again, I'm not sure it's an or. I think it's an and, because, well, let's put it this way: quality and quantity are both important, but focus on the quality. Because when you focus on the quality, you'll have such great relationships. It will result in a much higher quantity of quality.
Right, and it will show up on your bottom line.
Yes, and it will, exactly.
So, I guess I just don't want folks who are so concerned about reaching people, to think about it's completely a numbers game. Yes, you want to serve as many people as you can, but by focusing on the value, by focusing on the compensation part of it, how you're working with these folks, just like Nicole did with her company, it ends up being the results in your business, and you'll start seeing it there. And then we have the law of influence. And I remember, Sam, I just want to read this: a network of people who know you, like you, and trust you, your own personal walking ambassadors. And of course, your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first.
Yeah. And again, when you hear that, it sounds sort of Pollyanna-ish, right? Place other people's interests first. But when you think about it, the greatest leaders, top influencers, the most profitable salespeople, this is simply how they run their lives and conduct their businesses. They're always looking for ways to as Sam said, make their win about the other person's win. It's also important, though, Andy, to qualify this by saying that when we say place other people's interests first, we don't mean you should be anyone's doormat, that you should be a martyr, or that you should be self-sacrificial in any way. Not at all. First of all, anything you do in this regard should be congruent with your values. It should also be win-win in nature. If it's something that's hurting you, that's not a good thing, and that's not what we mean. It's just that when you mention that the golden rule of business, of sales, of networking is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. There's simply no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you from others than by moving outside yourself, moving from what we call an I focus or me focus to an other focus. And to the degree you can focus on bringing value to others, that's the degree you will plant so many seeds of great will. You'll create this benevolent context for success. You'll have so many people who know, like, trust you, who want to be your personal walking ambassador. You'll be overwhelmed in a positive way with all the business you're attracting.
Oh my gosh, I love those words. Benevolent context
for success.
For success. Love that. And it boils right down to givers attract and magnetize, yes?
Right.
Oh my gosh. I want to bring up a few more comments here. We have Christine Bowen. This go-giver perspective is that of a divine one. Human thinking will never be able to fully understand the true meaning of the law of reciprocity. It just is, like the law of gravity.
Well, I know Christine too. She's another of my social media friends, and she's a fantastic person. So, wow, we've got some real mutual friends on this show too.
It's so great. And I have let me just grab a few more right here. Bobby is with us today. Yay, Bobby. Placing other people's interests first. When you help others win, you also win. Ande Lyons is the that
Yes, you
principle.
are. I agree with Bobby Hughes Millman. You absolutely are like that.
Thank you, Bobby. I actually didn't see that. Thank you. Thank you. I'm practicing receiving. Thank you. And Dave Moore, who always has something wonderful to say. I'm going to bring his comment up. If you focus on giving exceptional value, then your customer will, in the main, disregard the cost. If they see the value, in many cases, the cost is irrelevant. We've all been there, right,
Well,
Bob?
yeah, Dave makes a great point, because what happens is, in a commodity-based world, because let's face it, technology has leveled the playing field. Most things work, right? When I was growing up, there were television sets and there were television sets. They didn't necessarily all work. Sometimes I was the antenna of the family. I'm standing back there with a tin foil and one leg up and one arm up, but now, you buy it works. Most things work now. Technology is really kind of, so what happens is the world's become commoditized, and people say, well, basically, I have a great product, but so does my competitor and this competitor. So what happens is there ends up being a battle for who can offer it at the lowest price. And when that happens, you become a commodity, because if that person buys from you because of low price, they're going to leave you for low price. Unless your last name is Walmart, making low price your unique value proposition is not the way to go. It's not unique. There's no value to it. It's hardly a proposition. When you sell on price, you're a commodity. When you sell on value, you're a resource. So what I want people to do is just exactly like that last suggestion. Fantastic. Is make sure you find ways to communicate value in such a way that your customer sees it as being of value. Remember, value is always in the eyes of the beholder. It's not what we think they should find to be of value. It's what they believe is of value. And when we communicate that, now price becomes not the issue. Now it's a matter of value.
Boy, and this leads right into the next law, which is the law of authenticity. What you were saying speaks to the whole branding of bringing yourself forward and that being the value. So I love competition because I love seeing a business model working out there, and I can go, okay, I can make money. That's right. They're making money, so I can make money. Isn't that wonderful? But I don't worry about someone taking business away from me. I focus on bringing my Andelicious value to the opportunity available, because no one's got Andelicious, just like no one has Bob Burg. We bring our own wonderful energy to each exchange, and there, supports the value, and it moves us right into the law of authenticity. And of course, I loved Deborah Davenport. What a great character you used for this. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, the law of authenticity says that the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. And Deborah, who was one of the mentors in the story, shared a lesson she learned early in her sales career after almost leaving the business because she just couldn't figure out what she was supposed to be doing. And she finally came to the understanding that all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and please know, I'm not diminishing any of them. They are all very, very important. They're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. Now, when you do, when you show up, as I like to say, as yourself, day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. They feel comfortable with you. They know, like, and trust you. They feel very secure with you. And so it's very important to be able to show up as yourself, which brings up the question, well, why do people not show up as themselves? Why do people sometimes show up as I guess the correct Latin term would be phonus balonus, right? They don't show up authentically. And we might think, well, because they're liars, or they, want to pull one over on us. And of course, it's a big world out there. There's all sorts of people. We've got to be aware of that. But I don't think that's usually the case. I think 9 times out of 10, when someone doesn't show up authentically, it's because they really don't have the self-confidence to do so. They don't have a core understanding of the value they bring to the table. And let's face it, it's hard to show up authentically when you don't feel you have anything worthwhile to show up authentically about. Yeah, I like to say we all have two types of value. We have intrinsic value, which is simply just by virtue of being born, by being put here, we bring value to the table. We also, Andy, have what I call market value. And I would define market value as those strengths, traits, talents, characteristics that allow us to add value to others in such a way that will be financially rewarded. And different people have different, as my friend Mike Littman calls it, assets of value. It might be that someone is a great listener. That's a great asset of value to have. It might be that someone is able to easily communicate certain benefits and tie them into another person. Someone might have a natural or a well-developed sense of empathy, where not only do they understand people, but others feel understood by those people. Some people are connectors. They can just put together good people with other good people. Some people have a knack for numbers, a head for business, whatever it happens to be. What's key is that we as individuals are able to figure this out about ourselves, because when we're not aware, and as human beings, it's sometimes difficult for us to be aware of the good things we bring to the table. We're too close to ourselves, and we know too many of the mistakes we've all made. So, and I know that you've mentored and coached many, C-suite executives, and I guarantee you, a lot of them had to come to you and say, "Well, what is it I've got going for me? What don't I? What am I doing this? What?" And they can't see. And you think that they can't see their own real value that they bring. And so it's important for us, whether reaching out to a coach like yourself, whether someone who we work with, someone who is to not try to do this alone, but to have people help us identify what those strengths are, because we might not see it in ourselves.
Boy, is that absolutely key. And you're right, whether you're C-suite or a solopreneur, you can get so stuck in the day-to-day tasks on your to-do list that you have forgotten to be, and you've forgotten who you be while you're at it. So sometimes we have to do that work to remind and bring somebody in to help you walk the journey and find out, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah. And sometimes it really is just having a conversation, and maybe even the person you have it with doesn't say a word. But you solve your own problems by understanding that key intrinsic piece of information. I just love how you bring in the intrinsic value and the market value. And again, reading books like the ones on my shelf and on your shelf, staying in touch with building your skill sets, whether it's mental, emotional, spiritual, or physical. These are all so important as entrepreneurs for our adventures. So now we get to talk about my favorite law. I mean, I love them all, Bob, but I was, reading The Go-Giver going, okay, so I do that, I do that, I do that. And then the law of reciprocity. Wow, that is such a powerful law. And of course, Rachel is a wonderful example that you use. Talk about the law of receptivity.
Yeah, receptivity. Yeah. Receptivity is actually a different law than reciprocity.
Yes, I was just speaking my own song.
No, that's okay, because they're both good laws. Reciprocity was made very famous in a wonderful book called Influence, Science and Practice by Dr. Robert Cialdini, which is a book I would recommend everyone get. Influence, the subtitle is Science and Practice. And his law of reciprocity is that as human beings, we have a natural need and desire to want to give to someone who's given to us. It's just very human. And it's understanding that in others and understanding that in ourselves is very key. The law of receptivity, which is what we talk about in The Go-Giver, is simply the ability to allow ourselves to receive good things. And the law of receptivity says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. And you might recall that late in the story, Pindar, the main mentor, asked Joe, the protege, to breathe out and hold that breath to the count of 30. And I do this at a lot of times when I'm speaking on stage. I'll ask the audience to do this, especially with a big audience. It's really fun. I'll say, okay, when I say go, well, let's all take a breath, breathe in, and then breathe out, and let's all hold that breath at a count of 30. Raise your hand when you're out of breath, right? So I say, okay, go, and we breathe out in 5 seconds, everyone's okay. 7, 8 seconds, few people. 10 seconds, my hand's up. And then more and more people. And by the time we get to 25, pretty much everyone's hands up but a couple. And and I'll say, you must be either a swimmer or an escape artist, because those two tend to be good at holding their breath, or not having. But even they have to eventually breathe back in.
Right.
And that was the key lesson. We can't just breathe out, which is giving. We must also breathe in. In our world, we hear so much negative when it comes to money. The news stories are always about the scandal and the greedy this and the person. You very rarely see the headline, corporate CEO did the right thing for his or her employees. And yet that's what usually happens. But nonetheless, that's not what sells advertising. But what happens is, and with the movies we see and the books we read, the stories that are told, it always pits the people with money. It presents the people with money as being mean and nasty and cowardly and having no soul. But the poor people, my friend Randy Gage, who's one of the best speakers today when it comes to prosperity mindset, just fantastic, has all sorts of great stories about this and all what he calls the memes or mind viruses that we carry on an unconscious level about money. And the challenge with this is that it's unconscious. It's not conscious. Mm-hmm. And so if we grow up thinking that having money means we're a bad person, or that we're not going to be happy if we have money, or people aren't going to like us. Now, let's say we're now doing these great things. We're providing exceptional value to people's lives, and it's great, it's fantastic. And the money starts to really come. What we'll do is, if that's not congruent with our belief system of the way the world works, now we're going to sabotage ourselves, and we're going to find a way to mess it up and have it not happen. And so that's why it's very important. And we got people, John David Mann and I received more emails from people saying, first 4 laws were great, but it's the last one, that was my toughest one, that when I finally got it, it gave me permission for the first time in my life to be abundant. And while we love the compliment and we think that's great, we feel badly that is the case, that, people really have to learn to be receptive. When you think of it, when you're first born, you're as receptive as can be.
Right.
What happens through all that time that all of a sudden we just can't, right? Even accept a compliment. So, and we've all struggled with it. I mean, I'm saying, I'm pointing at myself as well. And so, it's key to understand that giving and receiving are not opposite concepts. They're simply two sides of the very same coin, and they work best in tandem. It's not, the question should never be, am I a giver or a receiver? That's what we call the treacherous dichotomy, the false dilemma, the unnecessary use of the word or. You're not a giver or a receiver. You're a giver and a receiver. The key, though, is where the focus is. The focus needs to be on giving value. The focus on the giving and allow the receiving, and you will live a life of abundance.
I love that. Everybody take a deep breath. Come on. Breathe in, breathe out. We're giving, we're receiving. Get out. You're giving, you're going to be receiving. It's wonderful. And it's a wonderful segue into a question I have, which is having, cut my teeth in the 80s about being a go-getter. Yeah, that's when I came into the business world. What's the difference between a go-getter and a go-giver? Is it similar to you need both?
Yeah, I mean, people have said, well, are you with the title, are you and John saying being a go-getter is a bad thing? No, absolutely not. We love go-getters. Go-getters are people of action. Go-getters get things done. Andy, you and everyone watching, all of us, we're business people, and we know one thing, and that is you can have the best thoughts, a fantastic idea, you can have the greatest of intention, unless action's put into the mix, nothing's going to happen. It simply cannot happen. So no, we love go-getters. Fortunately, there's no natural division between a go-getter and a go-giver. Many go-getters are also go-givers, and every go-giver is also a go-getter. So no, we want people to be both go-getters and go-givers, just not go-takers.
There we go. Focus on the value and giving value, everybody. That's wonderful.
Takers, they're the people who are just, take. They feel they're entitled to just, right? And so, no, that's we're not looking for that.
And let's also take a moment to dive into sales, because as a business owner, sales is an everyday, wonderful 4-letter word, or if you have an S, it's a 5-letter word. But how does that work with the premise of the go-giver?
Sure. Well, everything about it, when you think of that, when we first talked about the shift in focus from ourselves to the other person. Well, what is sales? Well, sales can be defined as simply discovering what another person wants, needs, and desires, and helping them to get it. Now think about that. That's what sales is about. Sales is not taking advantage of others. Sales is not trying to convince someone to buy something they want or need. People do that, but that's not sales. That's called being a con artist. Okay, that's not sales. Professional selling is about connecting the benefits of your product or service with the wants, needs, or desires of the other person. That's what it is. So the go-giver is all about successfully selling. And that's why when I hear people say, well, don't sell, serve. Well, no, but selling is serving. Okay, by the very nature of the thing, that's what selling is. It's always looking at how to help the other person. One of my great mentors, Harry Brown, used to say, in a free enterprise-based economy, profit is simply the reward for serving another human being.
I like that. That's a beautiful thing. Everybody put that on your boards, okay? On the bathroom mirror. It's so important to have that state of mind. Thanks for sharing that, Bob. I'm going to bring up a few more comments because, there's so many. I couldn't begin to share them all. But here's Mel. Yeah, it took me a long time to be able to receive a compliment. Being open takes time and practice. It sure does. So many times women say, oh, what, this whole thing I've got on? I only wear this when I'm not feeling, What's that?
That's a great point. But the key is being aware of it as you are. And it's when you're aware of it that you can then take the step and do something about it. And sometimes building our receptivity muscles is just like building any physical muscle. You do it a little bit at a time. And it means that when someone gives you a compliment, you just say thank you. It means that when someone wants to pay for a dinner, you say thank you. It means that and we build it one step at a time, and we get comfortable. We build on our small successes and we develop it from there.
I love that. And speaking of awareness, Michael Thomas says, and all this comes down to the magic word, awareness.
Yeah, well said, Michael. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And doing the work to become self-aware, yes, and practicing and building those muscles. And then Laura, Bob Burg and Ande Lyons, you are both such givers. I can't thank you enough for all you have done and do each and every day. Thank you for the inspiration. You both make the world a better place. Bob Burg, loved your book so much, I read it to my children, ages 13 and 11. What a great idea.
Laura, that is a great compliment, and I appreciate that so much. We hear from a lot of parents who do that, and it's amazing how much the kids do really get, how much they do understand. And I think, when it comes from a parent like Laura, who obviously has a great heart and embodies the message herself, they really get it on such a deeper level. It's fantastic.
In our conversation today, it's very obvious that you love what you do, but what is it especially that you love about your work?
Oh, wow. I think there are probably 3 things that maybe, I don't want to say the magic formula, but seems to be that people who enjoy what they do, who are happy with it, seem to have these 3 parts. One is that, you simply do enjoy the process. I do love what I do. Okay. Second, it's knowing that there's a good financial part of that, the receptivity. And third, that you feel like you're making a difference in the world. And as human beings, we have a natural, it's been programmed into us by our creator. We have a need to be a part of something, to feel good about, to feel like we're making a difference, to have a purpose. You know what I'm saying?
I sure do.
And so this, I think, gives me those three things that allows me to just feel good about what I'm doing and enjoy it.
That's wonderful. And what are the possibilities for Burg.com, Burg Communications, that you're seeing on the horizon?
Well, one of the things we're doing, my brilliant business partner, Kathy Tagenel, and I, and she is so fantastic and amazing, just brilliant and a heart as big as her brilliance. And we've really been building a certified go-giver speaker program where people get the rights from us to learn how to speak. These are people, many of them have already had a very successful career in business, but they really related to the go-giver. The go-giver maybe helped them in their business. They're now wanting to kind of speak professionally, either part-time or full-time. And so they purchased the rights from us to speak on all my materials, the Go-Giver, Endless Referrals, Adversaries into Allies, everything that we do. And we teach them. It's a constant ongoing teaching. We certify them. We teach them how to be professional speakers, how to market themselves as speakers. And that's what Kathy and I are really building right now and having so much fun. We've got them in many different countries right now, and it's just starting to. So I really enjoy that a whole lot.
I love that. And I think especially for entrepreneurs, we often get caught up in being business doers instead of business owners. And I think speaking is a wonderful opportunity for us to get out, build our awareness and visibility and credibility in the marketplace, share our passion for our work. And now you have it so that folks can take their passion for this philosophy, for these laws, and share them. And you obviously are going to give them all your best trade secrets for how to present, because look at you, you're an amazing speaker.
Oh, thank you.
This is the point in the show where I just do a few mwahs to folks who swung by the comment section and said, Andy, I wish I could be there live, but I'm going to have to catch you in replay or hashtag replay city. And I just want to do a few quick mwahs to Kim Baltman, mwah, and Zena Altair, and Luke Craig, and Susan Winter, Phil at One Great Life. He's going to be listening. We're going to be in the backseat of his commute today listening. Blair Glazer, Cherie Valentine, who loves to cook dinner while she's listening to the show, Frank Gainsford, and the Wandering Poet. I'm so grateful to all of you for continuing to support the show and support the guests of the show who have such valuable information that they're sharing around the world. Thank you so much. Bob, any last words before we wrap up?
No, I had a fantastic time, which I knew I would. I think everybody who knows you has a fantastic time with you. You absolutely just are a joy to get to know. So thank you for having me as a guest on your show. And thank you, everybody, for being part of this today, whether you're watching live or watching or listening afterwards.
Well, we're so grateful for you coming through and sharing all of your gifts, but the most important, precious gift, which is your time. Thank you so much, Bob. Viewers, I'm crazy in love with all of you, and I really am in awe and wonder of your courage for being entrepreneurial adventures. I am cheering you on from here and wishing you an Andelicious day. Mwah, mwah, mwah. And for those of you who are live, I'm grabbing the link, and I hope we see you soon. Bye, everybody.